it's got a different vibe than the song Elisa sang earlier this morning, Grace and Gratitude. Olivia Newton-John, the way she wrote that song, it just, well, I love the pairing of the words. And the words have been paired for centuries, especially in spiritual communities and especially in Christian spiritual communities. Pairing grace and gratitude. I don't know about you, but there's something about it. When I think about it, it's like I want to waltz. I don't quite understand it because I grew up with rock and roll and I danced through the disco era, and as an adult I went back to ballet, but Olivia Newton-John's Grace and Gratitude is just like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I just start feeling so fluid, like waltzing. Waltzing is fluid, and waltzing is mindful orchestration. Waltzing is, it requires relationships that work. And waltzing helps me remember. It helps us remember our beauty and our power and our health and our wholeness and the radiance that we were created to be. So as we express grace and gratitude, it's easy to see that we're in the flow of life. As we express grace and gratitude, it's easy to recognize that we're mindfully orchestrating more goodness for our life. And as we express grace and gratitude, it's easy to see why it's important to have relationships and co-create relationships that work in our lives. And even just thinking about grace and gratitude, we change our very vibration so that we are expressing our true beauty, our true power, our true health, our true wholeness, and the true radiance that we were created to be in the image and likeness of God. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the 2 Corinthians, said this: yes, everything is for your sake, so that grace, as it extends to more and more people, may increase gratitude for the glory of God. It's a beautiful statement just in itself. Most of our English translations of the Bible came from the Latin, and in Latin, grace means gratia and gratitude means gratis, and you can see how pretty much they mean the same thing. But if we go back to the original texts, the original copies that we have in Greek, the language that Paul wrote in, there's just a little bit of difference. There's a nuance that the Latin misses. Grace is charis, and gratitude is Eucharistin. So you see how in the middle of gratitude, there's the root of grace? So once we have grace, once we declare a desire for mercy or kindness or compassion, once we enter that consciousness of grace, then from there emerges gratitude. So, there is an argument which comes first, the horse or the cart, the chicken or the egg. But if we go back to the Greek, we begin with grace. We begin with acts of kindness. We begin with acts of compassion and mercy. And from there, we find that feeling of gratitude. Now, gratitude has a lot of synonyms, words that mean the same thing, and I'm going to put 3 up here in alphabetical order. Acknowledgement. It's that observation or that action that says, yes, I recognize something happened here. Acknowledgement is saying thank you when a waiter or a waitress brings us our food. But it's that same seed of gratitude that's in that acknowledgement with a waiter or a waitress that can grow into gratitude that's huge and large and amazing and phenomenal, like gratitude to your parents for giving you a college education, or gratitude for your boss for giving you the big break or the big promotion. That kind of gratitude comes from acknowledgement. It doesn't have to be there. I mean, we pay the waiter, sort of. We pay for our food, and the boss pays us for our job. But it's recognizing and observing that something has happened that sparks gratitude within us. Appreciation is really noticing the value of whatever happened. In this community, we've been engaged in a 30-day practice of self-appreciation. And you can do it anytime. It's a self-appreciation journal that just says day 1, day 2, day 3. Well, we're on day 25. I appreciate taking initiative by. I appreciate my taking initiative by, and then there's a blank. And so I thought for today, what do I appreciate about my taking initiative? Well, I appreciate my taking initiative to pick up litter in our parking lot. And I appreciate my initiative to be on the garden team with Beverly and to help co-create a beautiful place. I take pride in our spiritual community, and my initiative to participate does that. So I'm going to ask you now. I appreciate my taking initiative by, and then you fill in the blank. Think about it. Think about it. I'm going to give you some prompts. Offering creative solutions, stepping into leadership roles when needed, agreeing to chair the committee.
Cleaning up.
Oh, thank you, Eugene. Eugene appreciates his taking initiative by cleaning up. I mean, it's simple. It's profound. Sometimes we have to sit in meditation to find what we appreciate about ourselves specifically. And I invite you to do that. The last one is praise. Praise is what Charles Fillmore and Nikki quoted him last week by saying, what we praise, we raise. Praising is lifting in consciousness. It's looking at where we are and saying, hey, it's not bad here or it's really bad here. I want to raise my consciousness. I want to see the world differently. Reverend Nikki last week gave us a number of affirmations, and it was, I bless you for the goodness of God that is moving in, through, and as you. And I've been using that several times a day this last week with several people. Not because I want to change them, because I want to change me. I want to change the way I see them. I want to change the way I am with them. And that's what praising does. It doesn't change the other person. It changes us. I bless. This morning I woke up, total panic attack, and I was like, I bless you. I spoke to myself. I bless you. I bless the goodness of God that is moving in, through, and as you. I said it to myself, but that's what praising does. It raises us up. If you have been in Unity for any time at all, you know that we look at the Bible metaphysically. We interpret those stories and the people and the events in the Bible metaphysically. And there's a story in Christian scriptures, it's in the book of Luke actually, about Jesus when he's traveling to Jerusalem. And he was leaving Samaria, going towards Galilee, and he came into a village. And as he entered that village, 10 lepers came to him and asked for mercy. They said, please, Jesus, have mercy on us. Now, what is mercy? Mercy is grace. Okay, good. It's another word for grace. So they were saying, please grace us with your healing power. Please see us as whole. Jesus said to them, go and show yourself to the priest, which they did, and they were made clean. Out of the 10, only one came back to say thank you. And that one came back, praising God with a loud voice, prostrating himself at Jesus' feet. So metaphysically, we know that we are every person in every part of the story. So metaphysically, we are the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, but metaphysically, we know that there is no bad and there is no ugly. So really, metaphysically, we're good, and we're the good that we have forgotten ourselves to be. The 10 lepers were Samaritans. Samaritans metaphysically are people who are part human and part spiritual. How many times in my life can I think of, well, just about every day, I recognize that I'm human and I'm spiritual. I'm a human being, but I'm also a spiritual being. So can you see yourself in that? And then the leper is a person who has forgotten their oneness with God. A leper is a person who has error thoughts that they're separate from God. And not every day, but there are some days when I forget my oneness with God. I have forgotten that I have these error thoughts that I'm separate. So can you relate to that? Okay, yes you can. I know you can. And then there's Jesus asking for mercy. And mercy metaphysically is wanting a current condition to be raised into a higher spiritual truth. Mercy is asking for our current condition to be one of possibility, to be raised into possibility. And for us, especially when in connection in the story with Jesus, we're looking at being in our pure Christ potential. The invitation to go to the priest is metaphysically an opportunity to open the channel of our mind, to stop thinking about worldly thoughts, but to actually open our mind to those higher, broader, more possible, more potential, more miraculous thoughts. And finally, there's the number 10. The number 10 is one of the most powerful metaphysical numbers of all because it's actually two numbers. It's a 1 and a 0. And the 0 means infinity. The 0 means oneness. And the 0 means developing our spiritual nature. And the 1 means new beginnings and opportunities. So when you take the 1 and the 0 and you put it together, really, we can do anything. Because of the 1 and the 0 together, the 10 is liberating us from whatever we were in before or had before, whatever limiting thoughts we had before. The number 10 liberates us into a whole new way of being, the abundant way of being. And that's why when you talk about tithing, it's always 10%. Because we're talking about returning to our oneness, and we're talking about new possibilities, and we're talking about expansion. 10 is just like the coolest number because it brings us back into grace and gratitude. I'm going to tell you a contemporary story about a former minister of ours, Reverend Sky St. John, and some of you knew him because you saw him at Canoga, at the regional retreat that we have every year. Well, if you knew him at all, and if you didn't, I'm just going to tell you, he was a showman. An incredible showman. He had more talent in his little finger than just about anybody I knew. And he had it from a very young age. He was always curious and wanting to learn new things, so his mother, Shirley, taught him to play the piano. And when he was a teenager, he was 13 or 14 years old, his church had a talent show, and he entered the talent show, and he played the piano, and he sang, and the crowd went nuts. So after the performance, he was kind of hanging around his dad, and one congregant was going on and on about, oh, that boy of yours, he's so talented, that boy of yours, he's so wonderful, he's just the best. And then the congregant said to Sky's dad, I bet you are just so proud of that boy. I bet you are so proud of that boy of yours. And the dad turned around and he said, that's not my boy. That's Shirley's boy. And those words became indelible on Sky. And he kept them as a wedge between he and his dad for more than 40 years. His mom got sick, and so he started traveling back and forth to help take care of his mom. And there was his dad, and Sky decided, he said, I don't want to finish our relationship this way. I want to heal it. I want to make it better. I want to come into harmony with my father. And so he spent time in prayer and meditation, and what he came up with was, I'm going to make a gratitude list about my dad. And it was really hard for Sky to do this, but he came up with 10 things. And on his next trip back home, he invited his dad out to breakfast. He took him out to Denny's. And there they sat at Denny's. Sky pulled the list out of his pocket and set it on the table, and after about the second thing, they started laughing. They started crying, and their relationship was restored. Now, gratitude isn't something you can make people feel. You can't even make yourself feel it. It's like when you were a kid and you were 10 years old and somebody gave you socks for Christmas. You know, it's like, say thank you, thank you. It's really the same thing as when somebody says, tell them you're sorry, and you go, sorry. You know, we can't make ourselves feel something we don't feel. But with grace, we can come into the possibility of feeling it. I was so inspired by Sky's story. I heard it on a Sunday. Thursday, I was on a plane to go to a family reunion, and I was going to see my former sister-in-law, who, when I had gotten married, I asked my 4 best friends to be bridesmaids, and I had asked Pam to be the guest book attendant, and she refused. And she didn't speak to me. It had been 17 years. She spoke to everybody around me, but she didn't speak to me, and I wanted our relationship to be different. If Sky could make his relationship with his dad different, then I thought surely I could make my relationship with Pam different. And so I started to rack my brain for something I was grateful for her about. Now, the way the reunion worked is that we flew in here to North Carolina, picked up my son, older son, in Winston-Salem, and she was coming up from where she was in Kentucky, and we were meeting in Lexington at a Dairy Queen that had 2 doors. And still, when I was getting out of the car to walk in, I'm like, how do you ask somebody to breakfast when they won't even talk to you? And moreover, how do you find something to be grateful for when they don't talk to you? But I recognize that the how is not my business. It was just, the how was just going to appear. And on my gratitude list, I had one thing. I only had one thing, and that was that Pam was good to my boys. She never missed a birthday. She always remembered Christmas. She just was so kind and generous, and she loved on them every time we got together. And for that, I was grateful with my whole heart. So here she comes in one door, and I come in another, and we meet in the middle of the room, and she says, hi, Mindy, how are you? How was your drive? Was your flight okay? What's new with Chris? Is Mark going to have a good summer at Houston Ballet? And I was just like, I didn't invite you to breakfast. And I haven't even told you what I was grateful for. Yet, what we praise, we raise. And what we acknowledge in vibration raises us in consciousness. Grace is an amazing pathway to remember our oneness. Gratitude heals us in ways that go beyond our understanding. If this is a waltz, if this is a dance that you are interested in, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Here's an affirmation you can make if you want to dance. I use grace and gratitude to free myself from my past. I step forward in full faith to celebrate my divinity. I use grace and gratitude to free myself from my past. I step forward in full faith to celebrate my divinity. Would you say that with me, please? If you're interested in dancing. I use grace and gratitude to free myself from my past. I step forward with full faith to celebrate my full divinity. How does it feel? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's say it again. I use grace and gratitude to free myself from my past. I step forward in full faith to celebrate my full divinity. Lisa's going to play, we're going to sing, and then Nikki's going to take us into meditation.